Hello YouTube, I'm Toby. Now today we're doing yet another budget build using the AMD FX4300 CPU. Now most of these parts I sourced on the internet from sites that sell used hardware, and a couple things like the FX I had to buy new because it was actually cheaper to buy it new than to have someone send me a used one, so it seemed like the better option. Now the parts used in this particular build is this case, the power supply. It also has two sticks of a 4GB DDR3 RAM plugged at 1600 MHz. Furthermore, I wanted to use the Radeon 6850 in this build, but as you'll see later, I had to switch it out for the GTX650. Of course, we have the AMD FX4300. I also got a 250GB hard disk in here, and the motherboard itself is an ASRock AM3 platform. Now I also got a 60GB SSD for this system. Now 60GB isn't much, but I figured it'd be way more than I needed to run the OS and all the startup applications. Now the most interesting part of this build for me is this particular case. As you can see, it's got a 400mm intake fan on the side. And that's pretty much what got me into this case. As soon as I saw it, I just knew I had to have this thing. Now, unfortunately, there's a huge and long scratch on the opposite side of this thing, but I may be able to paint that over, but I'm not entirely sure yet. Also, it was missing 3 of its 4 feet, so I had to take the 4th one off, otherwise it wouldn't be stable. Now when I first opened this case, I saw that it came with a power supply and it came with a motherboard and a beefy heatsink. Now I didn't know what this motherboard was, so I immediately took it out. And the first thing I noticed when I took the massive heatsink off is that whoever applied the thermal paste to this thing didn't really know what they were doing. But I finally cleared off the CPU and I saw that it was a Core 2 Duo. I've never owned a Core 2 Duo in a desktop before, so this will definitely be fun to play around with on a later basis. Now cleaning both the CPU socket, the CPU and the heatsink took quite a while, and it was quite a bit of work, but I managed to make it look alright. Now the build itself, there's not really that much to it. I just applied the RAM, put the CPU in its socket, and installed the heatsink and put the whole thing into the case. And after that, I pretty much just installed the HD 6850 and the 60GB SSD. Now Windows 10 installed quite easily on the system, so there's no issues there. I did have issues with the Radeon drivers. It seemed that the card would crash every time I tried to install them. And that's pretty much why I switched it out for the GTX650. The drivers for the GTX650 installed easily, and well, that's not the end of all the issues I had. The SSD itself showed up quite easily, but whenever I tried to put in a secondary hard disk drive, I wouldn't even be detected in the BIOS, so I really couldn't figure out why this wouldn't work. And to be honest, it took me around 10-12 hours to figure out that it was actually the power supply that did not have enough current in its SATA connectors to run the hard disk drive, so that sucked. But luckily I had a spare power supply laying around and I pretty much just switched it out, and now I have a 250GB D drive. Alright, so now that everything hardware wise is working, I went ahead and actually started overclocking the processor and the GPU. Now the GTX650 I got up to, I believe, 140 plus on the core and 100 on the memory. And I overclocked the FX4300 from 3.8 to 4.2 GHz. Now I do believe that this processor can be overclocked higher, but I can't really get a reliable reading from any of the temperature measurement tools that I have available, so I figured that was as high as I would want to go. Without further ado, let's turn the system on and run a few benchmarks. Alright, so I figured the first benchmark we'd start with would to be Cinebench R15. We only got 326 Cinebench points. I have to say I'm a bit disappointed. I was honestly expecting more, but yeah, well, I can settle with the 326. Alright, so we're running the Resident Evil 6 benchmarking tool at the lowest settings and the lowest anti-aliasing possible. So far it's running pretty good. We're running just high 60s, 70s and sometimes 80s, so I have high hopes for this benchmark. Alright, just 6,649. The game says it should work in an even higher resolution, but I was actually hoping for something higher, but well, alright, so Counter-Strike Global Offensive is actually playing really well. I pretty much just let the game autofill to its highest settings, and it's actually still yielding around 100 frames per second, meaning that this is very playable actually. Alright, so we're currently playing Subnautica at low to medium settings. Subnautica is actually very playable on this system. We're running at somewhere between 70 and 90 frames per second, and I have to say I didn't expect it to be this good. I do believe that you could actually up the settings on this thing and you will be able to finish the game on this. Alright, so we're currently playing Black Mesa. I have all these settings set to... whoa, shoot. Sorry, all the settings are set to mix between medium and low. And I absolutely hate this level because these little things are very difficult to kill. Oh man. Anyway, we're running at around 150 frames per second, which is quite playable actually, but we are experiencing some slowdowns. Dang. Well, as I was trying to say, we are experiencing some dips in frame rate. Not sure what this is caused by, but it definitely makes the game somewhat hard to play. Alright, so I'm guessing this is the one all of you have been waiting for. Player Unknown Battlegrounds, currently in the desert map. And of course I've set all these settings to pretty much as low as they will go, so I am actually quite excited to see just how well or how poorly this system will perform. Yeah, boy! Nice. Alright, so we're currently running around 20 or 30 frames per second, which with some slowdowns now here and there, and I'm dead. Well, okay then, let's try again. Alright, so I don't really feel like I got a proper chance to test the system last time around, so once again we're in the desert map. Alright, so far it seems when we're in the airplane we're getting around 60 frames per second, and once we start getting closer to the ground it drops to just around 20 and 30 frames per second. And I'm dead again! Wow, this is not going well. Well, third time's the charm, I hope. Let's see if we can actually get into a firefight this time instead of just dying in the start of the game. Alright, so once again we see a frame rate dropping from 60 to 20 or 30 while we are getting closer to the ground, so yeah. Alright, so I've pretty much been through this little collection of houses right here, and I have not found any weapons. All I've found was machetes, so this is going to be a very interesting playthrough. But right out here we are running just above 30 frames per second, and it does seem to be quite playable so far. And I've got a car up here, that's nice. You can always kill someone with that. Well, so far I can definitely feel a lot of stutter in this game, so makes the game a little difficult to play with all these stuttering, but yeah, I'm gonna see what happens once I get further into the game. And I actually finally found a pistol, so I guess I'm not as screwed right now as I was before, but it's definitely a long long way still until I get a chance at winning actually. Oh wow, what do we have here? Finally some good news. Just found an M16, so that should be, well, I don't know, it should make everything a little bit easier hopefully, but no reason to celebrate yet. There's still quite a long way until I get a chance of winning. Well, our frame rate is still in the 30s, so that's at least good. I can still feel some stuttering every now and then, so yeah, I am fearful of any gunfight right now because I have a feeling that I will not survive a gunfight. Whoa. Wow. Whoa, man! Wow! That must have been the worst firefight ever. Wow. This is really not responsive at all. I mean, it's difficult to play because it seems like there's some kind of input lag. And someone is not happy about that. I have no idea where he is. He's there. Ah, cool. I think I got him. Ah, man. Oh well. Alright, so PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. Playable, but at times not enjoyable on this system. But I think that may actually just be the fault of the GTX650 being a little bit old, but yeah, I'm gonna have to see if I can get another graphics card for this system, just to test out my hypothesis there. But yeah, let's see what MSI Afterburner is saying about our GPU and CPU usages. Alright, so as we can see right here, I'm not sure how well this picks up for you, but our CPU maximum usage is somewhere around 70 to 80%, whereas the GPU usage has been 100% all along, so that does tell me that the GTX 650 is bottlenecking the FX4300 just a little bit in the PUBG test. Alright, so that was my FX4300 build. From what I can see from MSI Afterburner usage graphs, it does seem like the GTX 650 all through these tests were bottlenecking just a little bit, so I'll have to look into getting a new graphics card for this system. I do believe that the FX4300 is still a good budget CPU if you want to get into something cheap. Just keep in mind that DDR3, which this system uses, is still fairly expensive. I managed to talk some guys down to what was that, $20 and $30 for the sticks respectively. So yeah. Now let's talk about this case for a minute, because I love this case. I mean, this fan, it looks awesome. The only downside to this fan is that there are no fan filters on it, so yeah, whatever you have laying around of dust and hairs and all that's just gonna get sucked right into the system. And there is a huge positive pressure in here. There's actually another intake fan down here. I really don't see a use for it because it's pretty much just fighting the massive fan pressure from this thing. And if we open up this little door right here, I mean, it's like a nice summer breeze just cooling your face. It's actually kind of nice. Now, truth be told, I'm not entirely done with this system yet. I still need to clean it a little better, see if I can get some of all this, I don't know if it's hardened dust, is that a word? Get that off of there, get something done about the scratch and the feet here, and I'm gonna have to see if I can get another graphics card other than the GTX 650 in here. Now, the total amount I spent on the parts for this system is $225 US, somewhere around that ballpark actually. But once I get a new graphics card, I got this one for very cheap on eBay a long time ago, but I'm gonna have to see if I can get a better graphics card in here. Yeah, I mean, it's decent for what it is, the GTX650, but it's just not good enough. The reason why I actually built this, I guess I should have told you that earlier, is that I have a colleague that wants to get into PC gaming, and all he has right now is a laptop. So I told him I could see what I could do about finding some cheap parts and building a cheap system for him. And this is what I've come up with so far, and the GPU is just not good enough. Now I am thinking about trying the Radeon HD 6850 again, but I still think it's a power issue whenever I try to install the drivers, because when I try you know, the Windows 10 basic display driver, it works fine, but once I go into the AMD website and download the appropriate Radeon drivers, it just, I don't know, it just kind of crashes. I even had one blue screen of death on me, but yeah. Alright YouTube, so that was my budget build featuring the FX4300. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Do you think this was a good deal? Building something for just around $225 that can do, well, what the system can do, or is it a huge waste of time and money? Let me know. But I really hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching.